Hello and good afternoon. Right. Oh, hang on. Come back. Right. You're back again. Hello. So welcome to my Monday afternoon for me. It could be any time of the day for you. On Monday, my free Amazon interview coaching. As always, it takes people a while to rock up, and I'm still waiting to see whether LinkedIn is going to work. Who knows as far as LinkedIn is concerned. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes and see who else rocks up. I'm sorry, you might be able to hear my ridiculous dog whinging in the background there. So apologies if you hear her. She is particularly whingy today. So please, if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor and just typing me a message. Oh, you've got it. You got it. You know how this works. Hey, Paulina. Hey, Cow Stuff again. How you doing? Nice to have you back. So let's just wait a couple of minutes for people to arrive. LinkedIn is not looking good. Oh, I just hate the integration between StreamYard and LinkedIn. It is never my friend. Oh, I might just have to post a message on LinkedIn. Just give me 2 seconds and I will pop over to LinkedIn and see if they are there. I hate typing under pressure. Oh, so annoying. I hate the kind of the dependency on this kind of mystical tech that you don't really know how the whole thing works. And then when it doesn't work, there's pretty much jack all you can do about it. Right, let's send that to LinkedIn and I will come back to you guys on YouTube. All right, so whilst we wait for people to arrive, particularly on Mondays, I do find that Mondays are very slow for people arriving. So if you have made it here with your cup of tea, we would have in the UK, or cup of coffee, wherever in the world, on a Monday morning, as I say, it's afternoon for me. Well done, you. You are investing in your future here. So well done that you've managed to make it here on time. So whilst we're waiting, we've got Paulina from Argentina. Very good. Are you my first from Argentina? Maybe. South America is becoming more and more exciting as far as Amazon is concerned. And I'm getting more and more people arriving from South America. So that is super cool. We have Gustav. Oh, I'm trying to remember where you were. I think you were in the US, if I remember rightly. But tell me if I'm wrong. Moven, Moven, where have you come from? Be good to know. Moses, I can see some good news there for you, Moses. So I'll tell everybody shortly about that. But I'd love to know where you're from. And then Valentina. Hey, Valentina. Hey, welcome to one of my sessions. I don't know if you've ever been to one of these before. If I've forgotten, then I apologize. But I know you, so it's good to have you here. Right. So I think today is going to be relatively quiet. I think the summer holidays, etc., have kind of. Oh, Moven, you're from Zimbabwe. Wow, you are definitely my first person from Zimbabwe. So that is so cool. And Moses, you're from Madurai. I've probably pronounced that horribly wrong. So I do apologize for that. In India, which is great. I did set this time zone this time for the Monday session specifically so that I could reach an India audience. So I'm really, really pleased you made it here, Moses. All right, so let's get going. I'll do my introductions. I'm sorry, Gustav, you've definitely heard this before. So I apologize if you've heard it before, but I will do it for those of you who are new. I'm Gigi. I am the Amazon interview whiz. I worked at Amazon for years, and like all Amazonians, I interviewed, but unlike all Amazonians, like only 5% of Amazonians, I was a bar raiser. That meant I was able to interview on tech and non-tech. I interviewed across all sorts of different job families, and I interviewed across all different parts of the world. Bar raisers are the only group of people who have that level of diversity in their interviewing. I hired hundreds of Amazonians, and I know exactly what it takes to get hired at Amazon. After leaving Amazon, I set up my own interview preparation academy. I have a very specific vision for what I'm trying to achieve, which is Amazon interview expertise for all. You may have seen that on my LinkedIn sign off. That came from effectively sussing that the people who were doing really well when I was bar raising were those who had had interview coaching. Sussing means working that out. I think that's a London phrase. And then discovering that Amazon interview prep is very expensive, like $200 an hour for an expert, particularly someone, a bar raiser like me. From an inclusion point of view, that made me feel really uncomfortable. So I thought I could do something about it. So I have my YouTube channel, which is like 2.5 hours of completely free, non-repetitive, totally actionable Amazon interview coaching. I also do tips daily on LinkedIn. I dabble on TikTok, although I really need to commit to that a little bit better. And then I have my own Amazon Interview Wiz Academy. Valentina is part of my academy. And I develop basically digital videos that will teach you everything you need to know to land your Amazon role and perfect your interview experience and understand the leadership principles at about 90% less than it would take you to pay for that information on a one-to-one basis. So with my goal of Amazon interview expertise for all, I've really tried to make it affordable and also fun and interesting. So on top of all of that, I do these live sessions. What else to tell you about the live sessions? Okay, the way this works is you type your questions in the box along the side and I will attempt to answer them. I will try and pick questions that are useful for everybody. Just to make sure that we make the best use of everybody's time. I cannot, I'm really sorry, provide very specific technical advice on very specific job families. There are over 300, probably way more than that now, job families in Amazon. No one person can be a technical expert in all of those. So I'm definitely an expert when it comes to the leadership principles, to interview strategy and technique, to the process, all of those things. You're probably not going to find someone more expert than I am. But from a technical standpoint, I'm not going to be able to cover off all of those things. So I do apologize if I'm not able to answer your question. Please don't just say any tips, Gigi, I've got an interview tomorrow. Please go to the YouTube channel if you're looking for general tips. Okay, so, and Lo Monk has just arrived. Welcome, Lo Monk. It's always lovely to see you. All right, so what else to tell you? If you are going through my YouTube channel, if you do want notes to help support your preparation and you don't have to write everything down, I do have a whole bunch of notes that I've created for the entire channel. There's a link to those notes in the description. You can go and grab yourself those. If you please do stay until the end of the session, I have an amazing giveaway for you that I promise you will absolutely love and will make a big difference to your interview process. But hang on until the end to do that. Okay, so I think that's about it. Why don't we just get going? I reckon we're probably going to run for only about half an hour today, given the numbers, but hey, I'm here, you're here. Obviously, no one from LinkedIn is here. Trust LinkedIn. But yeah, we'll probably run for about half an hour. So drop in your questions and I will pick them up and I will answer them. Whilst you're formulating your questions, please do that now. Wanted to let you know that I have a very, very special session coming up on Wednesday. That's in 2 days' time. And I run that at 5:30 p.m. British summer time, although I guess the clocks must be going back shortly. Boo. What I'll be doing is I will be offering you the opportunity to post your job description with your job title onto the session, and I will pick a few of them and I will deconstruct live those job descriptions to tell you what I believe the key leadership principles are for the role that you're applying for, because you need to raise the bar on the key leadership principles. Now, it could all go horribly, horribly wrong. Some job descriptions are really badly written. Some are fabulously written, and the pressure will be on me to get it right live. So I'm a bit nervous about it, but I'm going to give it a go because it is a key thing, a key skill that you need to be able to deconstruct that job description, to be able to do your preparation as accurately as possible. So do come along on Wednesday for that session. Okay, so please do drop your questions in. What I wanted to do is congratulate Moses. Let's just pop you up here, Moses. Moses got selected for AWS. Yay! I always wonder whether that sounds any good. I don't play that bit back. I skip that when I'm doing my chapters. Congratulations, Moses. Amazing job. And you are absolutely welcome for the guidance. You have a first question here. So let me just pop onto your question, Moses, because we're on you. So what to expect for day one joining. Okay, so I can only tell you from my own experience, Moses, because as a bar raiser, I would not have been involved in day one joining for any new candidates or new employees. It's one of those days, Moses. Well, it depends whether you do it remotely or whether you do it actually in Amazon. In an office, everyone just bundled into a room and you would get your laptop and you would get all the necessary equipment to log into the VPN. You get a bit of an introduction into Amazon, etc., the basics. And then about lunchtime, your hiring manager used to come along, pick you up and take you back to your team. Whether that happens now because of the remote world, I don't know. I don't know if they run those events virtually. The other thing that you should get, Moses, when you join is some kind of a launch plan. They have different names for them, for the more senior roles versus the more junior roles, and it depends on exactly what role you're going into in AWS. But you should expect that your line manager will have created quite a comprehensive launch plan for you that shows you what you need to do in terms of the basic compliance training that you would expect when you join any company. They will give you people to meet within the team and particular topics probably to discuss with those team members, and then any additional skills, development, training, courses, things like that, or documentation that you need to go through to help you on board. But it's going to vary quite materially depending on the team that you're in. But I do think that Amazon's onboarding process is actually pretty well structured and defined. It is important, and leadership do drill it into line managers that giving people a good start is incredibly important. So my launch at Amazon was better than any other launch that I've had in any other company that I've worked in. So fingers crossed you'll have the same experience, Moses. So congratulations, well done, good luck, enjoy, work hard, have fun, make history. Okay, let's move on then. See what other questions we have. What happens when you touch on other leadership principles that weren't asked over and above the ones you are asked, and you fail to do best in the other interview on those leadership principles? All right, so the way this works, Movin, is your interviewer is assigned a leadership principle, and their goal is to gather as much data as they can on, well, they're assigned 2 leadership principles, but to gather as much data as they can on that leadership principle. If you happen to say things when you are answering the question to that leadership principle that touch on other leadership principles, they will gather that data as well. You might actually say something about a different leadership principle that piques their interest. And even though they're not meant to be focusing on that other leadership principle, it might be interesting enough that they then start to poke a little bit and ask some follow-up questions on your segue leadership principle because they think it's interesting and they want to make sure that they capture that data. So then they've captured all of that data. If you are in the early rounds, then that individual will be the person who is responsible for making the decision to pass you through to the next round. They will review your data and they will want to get themselves comfortable that you are really strong on the leadership principle that they were testing you for, but they will also look at that data set and ask themselves, was Movin strong on any other leadership principles? And they'll do that assessment and that analysis of the data that they've gathered, and they'll look at the picture and they'll ask themselves, is this candidate looking like a strong candidate who I think is very likely to make it all the way through to loop and get an offer? By looking at all of the data, not just the leadership principle evidence that they were testing for, but also any other leadership principle data that they happen to pick up through the process. If you are at the stage of loop, panel, on-site, whichever term your recruiter is using for it, if you're at that stage, what your interviewer will do is comment exactly as I've just described, as they would have done in early rounds, on the leadership principle they were intending to gather data on, and make observations on the leadership principles they weren't intending to gather data on, but got lucky and got it, and record it in their notes and place a vote as to whether, based on their data alone, they would be inclined to hire you or not. All of that data then goes into the debrief process, whereby every single person who's interviewed you's data is gathered together. And the bar raiser will go through a process of reviewing the key leadership principles for that role and seeing if the collective data set suggests that you are bar raising. And when I say the bar raisers doing it, they're not doing it on their own. They're going through a process of engaging the other interviewers in a dialogue and getting everyone to talk about their evidence. And then they'll look at, or at the same time, they'll be reviewing the leadership principles that maybe are not so key to this role, but are nonetheless part of the leadership principles that are the core DNA of Amazon. So that's how that process works. So the data will still be gathered and still be input into the whole data soup that they'll review at debrief. If you are considered kind of bar raising overall, when they look at all of the different leadership principles, not just the key ones for those roles, but also other ones, but you aren't considered to be bar raising in the particular leadership principles that the team really, really needs strength in, probability is, and of course this is based on probability, not on a very hard and fast set of rules. Probability is the hiring manager will say, well, look, they're great. I think they'll make a good Amazonian, but they are not going to nail it as far as this role is concerned. I'm not inclined to hire them. In which case, you will probably get a not inclined recycle outcome shared by your recruiter. And that means that no, we're not going to go for you for this role, but feel free to apply immediately to any other roles that you think will fit. That's the way it works. If you cannot prove that you are bar raising on the key leadership principles for a particular role, it's very unlikely that someone is going to hire you, even if you look like a strong potential overall candidate. Because at the end of the day, yes, they're looking for someone who is raising the bar on 50% of the current population operating at that level in similar roles and long-term Amazon career growth potential, but you're still applying for a particular role, and therefore they need to see the strength in those key leadership principles. Okay, I hope I covered that one. I think I got that quite comprehensively. So I'm going to move on now. Okay. Oh, this is good. Enrique. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome. What are the most common questions for the online interview? Right, no one can answer that question for you, Enrique. You'll see all sorts of nonsense on the internet where people claim to know what the top interview questions are. You'll even see that nonsense from ex-Amazonians. The truth of the matter is nobody actually knows that data, because the questions that an Amazonian asks at interview are not recorded in the system in such a way that it is mineable. So it's very much captured in a free text box. So no one is able to actually mine that data out of hire as you would if you perhaps selected a drop-down box where it was a unique data point that someone could then mine out of a table. It doesn't work that way. So no one inside Amazon is able to actually mine that information. So no one inside Amazon actually knows that information. Now, people will interview a lot and they'll know what their preferred questions are. Every interviewer has their own preferred question. They might also be able to pay a lot of attention to the people that are interviewing around them. So the 5 to 6 people, no, more like 4 to 5 people around them and the questions they ask. And they might be able to get a sense of what they think the people in their kind of hemisphere are using most commonly. But that is not a sample size. That is not a representative sample size that I, for example, if I wasn't a bar raiser and I was only interviewing for marketing roles, because generally as an interviewer, you only interview within your own skill set area. Or if you're a recruiter, you'll only sit in on debriefs and read the notes for your particular skill set area for which you recruit. You have a very myopic view of the types of questions that are asked. Generally, I would say, based on my experience of interviewing across different job families tend to have their own flavor of preferred questions. So people who are interviewing for marketers tend to go for particular types of questions. People who are interviewing for solutions design architects tend to go for different types of questions. So there is no most common questions. There is no way of factually knowing what the most common questions are. And certainly if you see anybody tell you they can tell you what the most common questions are, empirically, they can't. They're probably going to be telling you based on their experience, which might be true based on their experience and them having written down a list of all of those questions asked by everybody. But there's no way that whatever their experience is that from a sample size perspective, it is representative of the multiple different business unit, or teams, business units, parts of Amazon, and countries around the world. Sorry. Wish I could give you the answer. It would, then I could sell the answer and I'd make an absolute fortune. But I will tell you the truth, which is there's no common questions, and therefore you won't see any of that type of content on my YouTube channel. Sorry. Okay. Hey, Diana. How are you, Diana? Nice to see you. All right. So are phone interviews in audio or video format via Amazon Chime? And do I one-to-one coach help with star stories? All right. So first part of the question, Diana, mostly you should be expecting to do a Chime video format. When the world was normal, it feels like such a long time ago that I can even imagine what normal was. When we're living in a normal world, you had this concept of phone screens where you would literally phone somebody and do your interview with them over the phone. And then you would have the kind of the loop. And then if you couldn't physically get into a building, the loop would be done over Chime. Now that we're in this crazy bonkers world, pretty much most things have migrated over to Chime. Again, there are always nuances between teams. Some people prefer to do just a phone interview in the early rounds and not put in the extra effort of doing a Chime. They should be in the minority because, you know, Chime is a much better experience overall because they can see you, you can see them, but there are always going to be interviewers who maybe have their own preferences for not doing Chime in the early stages. But broadly speaking, it should be a Chime interview. Unless you've got a really, really good reason for why you can't do video. And some people do. Some people aren't in an environment where video is going to work for them for whatever reason. If that's the case for you and you don't feel comfortable with a video scenario because of what you have going on in the place that you have to be, you just need to let your recruiter know and explain to them the reasons, and they will do everything that they can to adapt and allow for those circumstances. So I hope that helps. Do I do one-to-one coaching, help with star stories for the LPs? I'm afraid I don't do that. That's not something that I invest my time in at this stage. I'm sorry. Okay, Diana. I'm going to move on then. I will say, actually, Diana, before I move on and say I don't do one-to-one help with star stories, to my point in the opening of this session, I have built a digital course that goes deep into how best to construct your star examples. It's not my course that covers off the leadership principles, of which I have one for each leadership principle, but it's a course that tells you what I would tell you if you and I were talking one-to-one. Now, clearly, there's no feedback loop there. I can't review them for you, but it's a very detailed course that breaks down in the minutiae of detail how to construct good, concise, clean, Amazonian flavored star stories. So if you're interested in that, I'll give you the link at the end of this for the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy. It's only $40. It's unbelievable value for money. I keep looking at it and thinking maybe I should increase the price, but for now it's only $40. So that will definitely help you in terms of structuring your star stories for the different leadership principles. Okay, I will move on then. Oh, everyone's saying congratulations to Moses. That's amazing. So kind. I love this in the sense of a community starts to build up. In my Amazon Interview Wiz Academy, I also have a community where people buddy up and do mock interviews for each other, support each other. And I think it's amazing. That's one of my favorite things about what I do here is that it's not only me. People actually, I can connect people and get them to help each other out, which is the best side of humanity. All right, so what other questions do we have? Okay. Hello, Monk. Is it normal for the hiring manager not to be in any of the interviews? No, it's not very normal for the hiring manager not to be in any of the interviews. How do they assess the candidate without talking to them? That is the purpose of all of the data that is gathered by all of the other interviewers. So in normal circumstances, the hiring manager would want to be part of the interview process because they are going to have to work very closely with that individual and they have to feel confident that that individual will be right for the role. In some areas where it's very high volume hiring, the hiring manager doesn't come to the interview process. They rely on the rest of the group being very well trained, knowing what they're looking for, because as I said, usually your interviewers will come from around your role, your job area and the team that you're working in. And then they're able to review the notes that everyone is pulling together and the notes from the debrief to be able to get a sense for, do they feel good about that hire? So in most cases, the hiring manager will be there, but when it is volume hiring, and I think kind of the operations side of things tends to have this bias, there's also some kind of graduate side of things as well, where the individual hiring manager won't know whether that individual is going to come and join their team because they interview in big pods. Those are the types of scenarios where a hiring manager wouldn't be involved. But in most cases at a kind of in the corporate level, certainly, the hiring manager will be there. I hope that helps. Hey, Jasir. Oh, welcome back. Nice to see you again. Does Amazon offer shadowing to see if the role is a good fit? Not that I'm aware of, Jasir. I don't think there's any kind of shadowing type program. There are obviously internships and things like that where someone gets to come in, do a role for a little bit, and then Amazon decides whether they're a good fit for the role, and that can then turn into a full-time offer. But in terms of just kind of not being employed by Amazon and not being under any contractual obligation, but still coming, hanging around and shadowing someone who's in the role, that's never going to happen, because obviously that's incredibly dangerous from a kind of corporate intellectual property point of view. I'm just going to have a drink. I'm sorry about this. 1 second. Okay. So moving on, I'm very upset with LinkedIn. It hasn't worked at all. Just reading some questions. Right, so hello there. Right, if I try and say your name, I will mispronounce it horribly. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to do what I did for a lovely man that worked for me, Folu, who had a very long name, which I could never pronounce. So we all called him Folu. So I'm going to go for Olu. So I apologize if that's wrong and I've misstepped anything. I'm trying my best. So best thing you can do is go and look at my YouTube channel. There are so many tips there that will tell you what you need to do really, really well in terms of your interview. So go head to my YouTube channel. And then if you don't find the answers to your questions, please come back again. I'll be here on Wednesday at 5:30 and then again next Monday. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Paulina, there's no difference. So what is the difference between the loop and the panel? I've mentioned those terms on my video. I know. So as with all things Amazon, there are at least 3 different ways of saying exactly the same thing. So Paulina, these are the different terms that people will usually use for the final stage of the Amazon interview process, which is meant to be an interview session where you meet with multiple Amazonians, either in a single session or broken across 2 days. So the terminology that is used is either panel, loop, or on-site. Those are the 3 terms that mean exactly the same thing. And I know I have a shocking habit of using them all interchangeably. So I do apologize for that. But they all mean the same thing. And that's that final round where you meet with 5 to 7 different Amazonians, depending on your level. Sorry for confusing things, Paulina. Okay, what else do we have? Nikos, oh, you're in the academy. Excellent. Welcome, delighted. So can you answer a question using 2 examples? No, I wouldn't do that because the question is the question. So can you tell me about a time when you disagreed with a colleague? Tell me how you resolved the disagreement. I'm making that one up. It's not straight from the Amazon interview question bag. You have to answer that question. What I don't want is you saying, well, disagreement, that must be about earned trust. And I have 2 examples for earned trust. So I'm going to roll out both of those examples because I want them to see the 2 elements of earned trust that I've come up in my example. That's not how it works. You need to answer the question. And therefore, I struggle to see a scenario where you could throw in 2 different examples that answer exactly the same question, unless you've got 2 different examples that answer exactly the same question. And then I'd be worried, why would you bother having 2 different examples that answer exactly the same question? So no, that would not be something that I would propose you do. If you're an academy member, you'll know all about the facets of the leadership principles. So have an example for each facet if you possibly can, and then you will have an example that is well framed for pretty much any question that you are asked by an Amazonian. I hope that makes sense. Okay, moving on then. Yeah, Paulina. Good question. So you've already been through a few rounds. You're now going to the final round, loop, panel, on-site, whatever we choose to call it. You've got the hiring manager again. Yes, that's absolutely normal. Will they ask you the same leadership principles? In theory, they shouldn't. If they know what they're doing and they're sensible, they will get themselves assigned different leadership principles than the ones they asked you the first time round, because what they want to be able to do is get a broader sense of where your skills lie. So if I, as a hiring manager, only ever asked people who are going to come and work for me about dive deep and earn trust, I wouldn't get a good sense other than relying on everyone else's data, which I can do. But why would I? Why wouldn't I choose to try and gather data from you on earn trust? I've done it in trust, didn't I? Learn and be curious and think big. So I would be very surprised if a hiring manager asked you the same leadership principles twice, because I think that's a wasted opportunity as a hiring manager and as a bar raiser. But you should definitely plan for the same leadership principles that you had in the early rounds to appear again in the later rounds. The reason being, if they put them in the early rounds, it's because they are probably the most important leadership principles in that role. Maybe not the most ones, but certainly part of the collection. And the reason why they put them at the front is in order to minimize the wastage that you get in terms of the interview process, you're better off front loading the leadership principles that you really care about in the process. Because if someone can't raise the bar on those leadership principles, you'd rather know sooner rather than later when even more resource has been invested. So I don't think your hiring manager will ask you the same LPs, but I would expect the same LPs to resurface once you get into loop, panel, on-site, whatever we're calling it. Okay. Oh, Daniel, this is an unusual situation. So another Academy member, welcome, welcome, delighted. So you're going to be interviewed for 2 positions in one day. Interesting. Do you need to make a different example for all, or can you repeat the example for both of the positions? So this is, that's going to be a busy day for you, Daniel, isn't it? I'll just put the second part in. So I'm going to assume, Daniel, that you're being interviewed by 2 completely different groups of people in the one day, and you're interviewing for 2 completely different roles with those 2 different groups of people. If that's the scenario, I would say I think you're okay to repeat the same examples for those 2 groups of people. The reason I say this is when they do their debrief, they're not going to be looking at each other's data in order to make a decision for the debrief. The group that interview you for role 1 will look at the data that they gathered interviewing you for role 1, and the group that are debriefing for role 2 are going to be looking at the data that they gathered on you when you were interviewed for role 2. And therefore, they won't see any duplication because they're not looking at each other's notes. The other reason why I think it's okay is, imagine in the main, you're going to be preparing, well, you're going to have, if you've made your way from early round all the way through to loop, probably between 20 and 25 questions asked of you the whole way through that process. If you've got 2, then we're talking about 50 different questions. Well, unless you've got a career history of about 40 odd years, and they have been incredibly stellar 40 years, you're going to have a very hard time coming up with completely unique, really strong, high-performing examples for 50 questions. So there would have to be a level of sympathy to the fact that you are going through 2 processes in parallel and you're taking your way all the way to the end. So I would say, yes, you should be okay to repeat the same examples. I find it very extraordinary that you're doing interviews for 2 different roles on exactly the same day. That's hardcore, but fingers crossed for you. Clearly, if you're an Academy member, you'll be well prepared for that hardcore, but it is a very unusual situation. So I have my fingers crossed for you, Daniel. Okay, moving on then. Next question. Jasir, okay, would it be appropriate to show some of your personal coding projects in the loop to get some extra points? So I've not sat in on a technical, I assume it's an SDE type role. I've not sat in on an SDE technical coding interview. Structurally, I'm not sure it would work because obviously you're given a assignment and asked to solve a particular problem and go through the process of conceptualizing it, imagining, and then writing down and then proofing your code. So I struggle to see there where you'd have the opportunity to put other coding projects on the table, but have them with you just in case the opportunity presents itself. Whether anything you do in that context is going to influence the decision being made by that interviewer, I'm not convinced, because really they're going to be assessing your ability to write the code as they've presented the challenge to you, your ability to, and the quality of your thinking and your critical thinking and clarifying questions and the quality of the code and all of those things that are going to matter, its scalability, those types of things. I'm not sure they're going to be able to make that assessment when you just kind of pull out a coding project from the past, but I guess there's no harm in having it with you. And then when it comes to the leadership principle side of things, I don't contextually see how those two things would fit together. So there's no reason not to be armed with them, but I would just suggest that it's not something that would easily fit into the process. So you need to nail the actual process. Okay. Oh, Sonali. I recognize your name. You've been to a few of the sessions and you've got a role. Congratulations. I'm so delighted for you. Well done. I'm very, very pleased to have been able to help. So I need to do my yay. Congratulations. Well done. You obviously work very hard. I've seen you at a lot of these sessions and you've asked me quite a few questions, I think, on YouTube as well. So well done for getting there and doing your prep and working hard. Yep, work hard, have fun, make history. Cool. Okay. So do we have any more questions? We're at the 40-minute mark and I thought we would probably make it 30. So we've gone over that. That's fine. If you have any more questions, please do jot them down now. If not, what I can do is share with you. Any more questions before I wrap things up for the day? Nope. Okay. So let me please share with you. As I said, I would give you an incredible freebie. And to Sonali's point, she did my Customer Obsession Masterclass, which effectively I'm giving you for free now. So if you check out the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy, I always do it the wrong way. No, it's this way, Gigi. It's this way. The Amazon Interview Wiz Academy.com. You can go and grab my Customer Obsession Masterclass completely free. It will show you the 4 different facets of the leadership principle that is customer obsession. Yes, there are 4 different facets. It will tell you exactly what they're looking for in your answer for customer obsession. And it will show you a mock interview in terms of getting you familiar with what the experience is going to be like and how best to land the evidence that you have from your leadership principle. It's utterly free. I do not chase you up with follow-up marketing. I know lots of these freebies tend to be so that people can hook you in with follow-up stuff. I don't do that. The reason why I give you customer obsession is I promise you every single one of you will be asked customer obsession question if you make it all the way through to the final stage, because it is the most fundamental leadership principle. So if I was going to give anything away, the one I give away is the one that's going to be most used to everybody. So with that said, I can see 2 more comments. So I'm just going to pop back because I've got a few more minutes. So I'm going to leave that banner up there so you can go check out the Academy. Oh, yes. Oh, Nikos, right. Attrition rate. Is the attrition rate so high at Amazon as the internet claims? Isn't this somewhat worrying? Any thoughts? Right. So somebody sent me an article recently on the what was supposed to be Amazon churn. Now, I don't know what reference you're using, Nikos. I don't know what article you're referring to, but the article that this person sent me fell apart very quickly when I started to look at the methodology. It claimed that the average tenure of an Amazonian was 1 year. It wasn't. When I looked at the actual methodology, they weren't measuring that. They were measuring of people that leave Amazon. 50% of them leave within 1 year. Then I looked at the stats for all the other companies, and that wasn't unusual. Other companies, people left within 8 months. Other companies, people left within 14 months, something like that. And that data was basically saying that of people that choose to leave a job in Amazon, they decide to do that very quickly. 50% of them decide to do it within a year. 50% of them decide to do it after a year. We don't know how long that after was. So you've got to be really careful about what these reports are actually telling you. They're not very clear until you actually dig into the data set. So that's my first warning. Be super careful about what you're reading and the actual data that they are presenting, because very often what they say they're presenting is not what they are presenting. So that's the first point. Number 2, attrition rate being very high. It is going to vary massively, Nikos, between the different kind of job functions, if you like. There's going to be much higher attrition if you think about the people that are working in the sorting offices and the fulfillment centers. Very often they're seasonal workers. Very often they're there as a stopgap. They're not there for a long-term career. They're there for a stopgap to fill a gap in their career or to get some money in. Whereas the attrition rate in the corporate spaces is going to be completely different, because clearly those people are there. They're not seasonal workers. They're there for a long-term career. So I am not alarmed by what I read, because most of what I read is unrepresentative because the data is not robust. And I think it depends entirely on what part of the business that you're looking at as to what the attrition rate is. When I was working in Amazon, most of my team stuck around for many, many years. The tenure in my team in Prime Video, as an example, I have colleagues who are still there who have been in Prime Video for 12, 13 years. The team that I hired, I think 80% of them, I left Prime Video 3 years ago, and 80% of my team that I hired are still there. So the average tenure of those people would be about 4 to 6 years. So I'm not saying it's not true, because that's disingenuous to the point I made earlier, but I am saying it's not as stark and terrifying as is reported in the press. I hope that helps. Okay. Oh, we've got a couple more. Let me just check the time. I'm good to go. Yeah, I'll keep going. Paulina, okay, that's dive deep. In-depth thought and analysis. That's a classic dive deep analytics question. Moving on. Oh, Vineeth. Oh, we have another successful candidate. Yay! You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Congratulations. That makes me really, really happy. I put a lot of effort into this, and most of it's free. And there's lots of people, you guys, that are using my knowledge and my experience that I give for free. And I'm delighted that it returns dividends to people. So well done, Vineeth. Have fun, work hard, make history. So exciting. Right, what else do we have here? Yep, a few more minutes. Okay, I'm a Najedits. Hello, welcome back. I definitely remember your username. So you had 3 on-site interviews. Okay, so you're in final round, you've had 3 scheduled, but now HR is asking your availability for a final round. Does it mean you cleared earlier round and then process further? Is it just normal process? That sounds like someone's done something really inefficient there, nudge edits. So you should have usually 4 to 5, depends on what level you're interviewing at, 4 to 5 interviewers in your final round. You only had 3 organized. They needed to organize a 4th, and it sounds like they've just been a little bit inefficient about the timings of making those arrangements. So no, it doesn't mean that you cleared it. What it means is there's just one more person who you needed to be interviewed by in the final stage, which is on-site loop panel. Remember those words being used interchangeably. And it's just part of the overall process. And then once they've all gathered, that final interview has happened, they'll have their final set of data, and then that data will be pulled together, and the bar raiser will facilitate the discussion about whether they want to hire you or not based on that full set of data. Okay, right. Do we have any more? Okay, no, it looks like we are done. So as I said, seriously, go and get yourself this free Leadership Principle Masterclass. There is just no good reason not to. I will not be chasing you for upsells. So that is the only reasonable reason why anybody would not take a freebie. Go take this freebie. You will not regret it. I promise you. If you would like to be part of the potential review of your job description, please do come again to the session on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. British Summer Time, your equivalent time zone. Bring the link to your job description, to the Amazon Jobs portal, and the job title itself. Post it there in the comments when we get going on the session, and I will pick a few of them and I will show you exactly how to deconstruct a job description so that you can tell what the key leadership principles are. So you can either go away and study them, or you can just purchase each of those leadership principles individually from the Academy so that you can be absolutely sure you understand them and their facets inside and out. So with that said, thank you very, very much for joining. Your name's Abhishek. Excellent, Abhishek. I've worked with a few Abhisheks before, so at least I can pronounce that one. Thanks so much for joining. Please, please take care. The world, I thought the world was getting less scary, and it seems to be getting more scary, or at least here in the UK it is. So please, everybody, take care of yourself. Good luck with your interviews if you have one between now and the next time you come back. For those of you who've got roles already, I'm so delighted. I'm so proud of you. Honestly, working at Amazon changed my life and my professional knowledge, capabilities, and trajectory fundamentally. I know it will do the same for you. So well done, congratulations, and please be safe, everyone. And I really, really hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye. Take care.